Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Raise the Vibe with Liz. I'm your host, Liz Peterson, and today we're diving into shadow work with Stephen Twohig. So first, a little bit about Stephen, founder of Mastering Change. He has committed himself to mastering the art of transformation while seeking to heal from trauma inflicted while just a toddler. Stephen was introduced to the practice of shadow work in April of 2000, leading to a lifelong study and what he believes is a path to enlightenment. Currently, he is studying the impact of shadow work on psychedelic integration. He focuses on bridging the gap between traditional plant medicine and the Western mind, intending to bring the insights and innovation that plant medicine provides to everyone who wants more out of their lives. He blends strategy, shadow work, and spirituality with his extensive study in mindfulness, mindset, business optimization, shadow work and facilitation, NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, hypnotherapy, group dynamics, peak performance, leadership dynamics, and unconscious communication. Through this work, he has formulated a specific framework for understanding the human experience and is currently training other guides to spread the practice. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Liz. It's good to be on here.
So great to have you. This is one of my favorite topics. Like you know, right around 2000 in my 4-year program, that was part of it, was this shadow work. It's diving into yourself because you have to unwrap yourself before you can go out and heal others. So let's dive into you and your personal journey and what has been your journey, to this work, Stephen. Let's hear your story.
Well, I'd love to say I'm tragically hip and terminally unique. I'd love to be able to say that. And I spent a good majority of my life noticing how I wasn't that. And so I think that the biggest piece I would want your listeners to get is that there's nothing tragically hip or terminally unique about me. But some of the unique experiences I've had when I was 3 years old, we could go back farther, but 3 years old, my stepmother, when my dad would leave for work, she would trap me in the basement. Apparently I looked like my mom, and then she beat me, she pulled all my hair out, she starved me, and then she would let me out during the night and say, if you say anything, I'll kill you and your sister both. So this, 3 years old, it's pre-verbal. Mom and dad are God at 3 years old. You don't have any concept of what God is at 3 years old. Your concept is more pure. It's past whatever frames we're trapped in. And so I had no language because I wasn't really speaking. And then when they got me out, when they finally figured out what happened, mom got me back. Well, of course, the prevalent thought at the time was just don't say anything, it'll go away. Well, yeah, the behaviors went away, but that feeling, that experience was very prevalent in my mind. I mean, now I'm fast forward, I'm 40 some years old, driving around with my wife, and she's like, well, what would you like to eat tonight? We're on date night of all nights. And I'm like, well, why do I always have to be why don't you ever tell me what you're thinking? Why do I always, and feel it's kind of rooted in how are you trying to trap me? That experience of feeling like I was going to be trapped, it had perpetuated into, because the mind, what it does is once it creates a meaning, especially something so powerful as that, it creates a split. A lot of times they call it a split. A false self comes online. But what it starts to do is it starts to manage that risk, because your risk manager comes online and starts to manage. But the risk it's managing is, how am I going to get trapped? And so then the mind takes that meeting and automates it, and it puts it everywhere it can. So relationships, finances, health, driving around the block, getting up in the morning, like everything had this feeling of somehow you're going to be trapped here. Somehow you're going to be stuck, or you either were stuck, just getting ready to be stuck. And so it wasn't until I really got underneath all that, now when I'm driving and I feel that condensing, I go, wait a minute, in a minute, I'm trapped in that basement again, aren't I? I know where it's at now. So I know, like a monkey, if you take a monkey in India, you go look at how they trap monkeys. They would take a gorge and they would hollow it out, and then they would put fruit in it. They just tie it to a tree. Well, the monkey comes in being curious. What are we? We're curious. They stick their hand in that gorge, and then they put their fist around the food. And now that the fist is bigger than the hand, they can't get their hand out. But the monkey can't see his hand is the problem. He doesn't know that. And because he's not made the connection between his fist being bigger than his hands and that his hand is in a fist because it can't see inside of there, he doesn't ever let go. And you see the monkey, I've got video, go up on my YouTube, you can see the video. They're literally gnawing on their arms. That's what we do. we grab onto something because it's what we need to be safe. We make an agreement with ourselves that we'll never allow this thing to happen to us again. And now we're looking for it everywhere. And seeing isn't believing, believing is seeing. And what's wrong is always available. So I can always find ways of where I was being trapped. That led me down a road of, addiction, failed marriages, just every everything you could bump your head on, everything you could find yourself trapped in. I've been there, I've done that. Like the tragic hip thing about me is that, yeah, I've seen all that shit happen. I've done all that shit myself. And so I had to get underneath that stuff. Otherwise the programming was going to continue to control me.
Right. I want to go back to the beginning of your conversation. You said you could go back before then. And I know personally, doing my shadow work and various workshops and journeys, that you can go all the way back to the womb, as I did, all the way back to the womb, and how my mother was feeling when she was pregnant with me. Can you discuss a little bit about that experience of yours? Because I think that this is something maybe we
Well,
haven't.
I can give you several pieces of it. So the first piece would be, every person on the planet, we can all agree on one wound, and that's the wound of birth, the trauma of birth. That's one trauma that every human on the planet carries, that we're not. The only person I know that's talking about it is a gentleman by the name of Stanislav Grof. They call him the grandfather of psychedelic medicine. He talks about the four matrices of birth. And if you follow the four matrices of birth along, you see very clearly what Joseph Campbell called the hero's journey. And we get stuck in this cycle. The mind runs in cycles. Everything is cycles. Summer, winter, we go through summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter. Our mind is trapped in that cycle. We anticipate that cycle. We know that like you can feel spring coming on, kind of thing. There's a 80-year cycle that if you watch the turning, I think it's called The Fourth Turning is the book, where they talk about an 80-year economic cycle. Everything is cycles. And we look at the way that we're now seeing the world. We're seeing the world through holograms. The world is a hologram. It's all fractal representations, smaller and smaller versions of the whole. Everything is patterns, right? So obviously, if that were the case, my mind is just a bunch of patterns. Well, we go back to before that happened. Well, obviously there had been something. My mother, her drug dealer tried to rape her. She went to grab the knife, pulled the knife out of her hands, cut her hands off, but she couldn't take care of us. So she gave my youngest sister up to our uncle for adoption, and me and my oldest sister went to live with my mother or with my dad. That left me with a feeling of abandonment. Well, I believe we have 5 core fears. There's 5 core fears that I run into when I track them all down to the root. The first one is I'm not good enough. We all have that fear. You're not going to love me. If you leave me, I'll die. I think those are patriarchal, but I could be wrong there. But those 3 fears I see almost everywhere. The other 2 is abandoned or smothered, right? And I think that comes from the birthing process, from the when we hit the second matrices of birth, we're now inside the womb and it's too tight. We don't know what's going on. This organism just now knows it's trapped in this space and the blood flows cuts off and the food source cuts off. Like all of a sudden now there's this organism inside another organism, and that organism that's outside of it is now a danger, right? So I think that may come from there. I don't know, but it's trapped, abandoned, not good enough. You're not going to love me. If you leave me, I'll die. So I had this feeling that comes on, why did mommy leave me? And no, not only did she leave me, but she gave me to this monster who's now going to trap you in a basement. So those pieces, I'm just now starting to dig into that work back there. It took me 23 ceremonies with ayahuasca to kind of get underneath some of this stuff to see what the heck was going on. I wasn't like I wasn't trying. I mean, I went around the world, spent 10 years working underneath Tony Robbins. Like it wasn't that for lack of trying. I work with some of the best. I just needed a little more support than what I was finding out here. And that's what took me to plant medicine. But the original question was, let's go back and look at that. We all have trauma, and it all comes from birth. Typically, it starts at birth. We all have to go through trauma right there. And imagine what that's like. We have no idea what it means to be a human. Now, what not only are we dealing with many times, we do shadow ceremony. We do this thing called generational shadow. And you'll see where great-great-grandfather had this thing happen to him that hit grandfather, that hit father, that now hit son, or great great grandmother did this thing to like this, and it was all about. We had not the last one, but the one before we did. I took it out of the women, out of because we can only take 24 out of 11 women. 10 of them had been sexually assaulted. And one of them, the one that hadn't, her mother had locked her up in the house because her mother had been sexually assaulted. I thought that was profound. If that doesn't teach you something about our world and how shadow has a way of finding its way through, nothing. I don't believe that there's any other way to kind of heal our world than to go back in and start going inward. Every one of us has to go inward. What is this demon that I'm projecting out there that's coming from in here?
Yeah, whether it's our own or it's generational trauma, those patterns and programs that are passed down from generation to generation. So true. So let's dive into what is shadow work, how do we work with shadow work, and really diving into those wounds and stories that we have and how we work with those.
I'm actually, it's funny because this is about to change because I'm having like people go, what do you do? Well, I'm a shadow guide. Well, what's that? Well, I work with shadow. What's shadow? Well, I do shadow work. What's shadow work? It's like it's confusing. People don't know what it is. People know what it is. They've been doing it like we talked earlier, been doing shadow work. Probably your listeners, you've probably been doing shadow work your entire life and not even realizing that you've been doing shadow work. I believe the current zeitgeist, the current belief around shadow is the parts of yourself that you hide, repress, and deny. I think there's much more than that, but that's where we can first grab onto it. That's where we can first see it because suffering is sacred. I can't see where I'm lying to myself unless it's causing me pain. The squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? The first rule in the way I train people, the first rule of shadow work is we lie to ourselves first. First, I have to know that I'm lying to myself. I'm telling myself, because suffering never sits in the data, it always sits in the story. Telling myself a story, what is the story I'm telling myself? And what is the pattern that I keep? Because we don't know that we're telling ourselves the same story over and over and over, right? That shadow, it's like there's this frame of reference that I'm locked into that I'm going to be trapped. And it might have been, and when I'm at work, it's this employee is trying to get the job that I'm going for, or this has not happened, or that's not happened, or over here it'll come off as this person's just never going to listen to me. I'm never going to have the relationship that I want. But it's still the experience of being trapped. It's the same experience, different. It's like the names have been changed to protect the innocent kind of thing. It's like you're still listening, you're still watching a horror film. It's still the same genre. You're not going to a comedy, you're not going to a love story. You're stuck in the same. National Science Foundation suggests that 90 some per thought of your thought 90 over 95% of your thoughts are repetitive. We're thinking the same stuff, and of course it is. The mind is built around the structure of the mind. Over 20% of your caloric intake is just to manage the brain, and it's the most heavily intensive organ that we have. So it starts to create what's called the default mode network. This is the default way that you view the world, and because you have this default, then everything's going to be patterns. Well, I started to ask myself, if my mind says patterns and thinks in patterns, then the suffering must be a pattern as well. And I looked over in my life and said, oh, that's exactly what's going on. Like, oh, look at all that work. Like, look at this messy ass room, right? And so all of a sudden that led me on another kind of run. So it's like everything is patterns. And if I'm thinking the same, experiencing the same thing over and over, the other thing is I can't be experiencing the same story over here that I'm experiencing somewhere over here, but somehow I am. Like, isn't that interesting? Starting to notice that. And that's, I think, when we start, everything I'm talking about is really shadow work. Shadow work, in my definition, is the subjective experience of diving into the deep conscious to unlock insights, break through barriers, and heal wounds that are causing cycles of suffering and hurt. That's what I believe. That's my definition. Everybody has a different definition because, well, it's shadow, so it's going to have a certain amount of shadow around it, right? But it's really what's going on into the deep conscious. I don't call it the unconscious. I think it's you have your, if you're listening, follow along, right? So right now in your head, just say hello. There they are, and they never shut up, right? They're always jabbering, always chatting, always saying something. And notice that that's your plot, right? That's your plot. what I'm telling myself about what's going on right now. Right now, you're making meaning and you're like, that fits. Yep, that's what I'm doing. And notice that meaning is attached on top of all the other meaning that you've made in your life. It's like, yep, that lines up with everything else I know. And then down it goes. And what happens is it continues to push those meanings. And it's not just talk, it's smell, it's taste. It's a full-blown Hollywood studio with, Stephen King or whoever your top dude is up, or gal is the case it many times is, right? In there talking the full-fledged, like high-end record. And it's just, and what is it doing? It's running scenarios. What does this mean? What does this mean? I believe that the mind, the sole purpose of our mind is to create meaning. Like if you really look at what we're doing, it's just meaning, 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 meaning. It's just constant meaning coming out of us. That's where you get cell phones, and that's where you get this Zoom. Somebody created meaning and they made it real, right? The problem is National Science Foundation suggests that 80% of the thoughts that you're repeatedly telling yourself over and over and over are negative. And I don't believe they're negative, they're survival based. Attack thoughts, awfulizing, negative bias, confirmation bias. The mind is wired for 3.5, it's been hijacked over 3.5 billion years for survival. So now we're making these survival rooted meanings, and it's like we're stuck on the island of survival and we never really get too far from it. In today's version of success, I can't tell you the amount of success. When I say successful people, I've got people that are like success, like their level of success, and most people's like, one guy sat in Tony Robbins, was at a Tony Robbins event. He's up front. And he's like, I turned around and looked and realized I made more than 98% of the people in this room. I had to ask, and it's like, okay, great, but you're still suffering. I can't tell you, because what happens is, it's like one thing for me to say, if I had that new boat, I'd be happy. If I had that new job, I'd be happy. It's a whole nother thing to get down the road and get that and not be happy, because then it's like a kick in the gut kind of thing. And it's like people think that when they're unhappy or they're unsatisfied, they're projecting out here as to why that is. That's not the case. I'm finding more and more and more, we're all living in a dream that we don't know we're having. It's like a horror film. My second ceremony with ayahuasca, I call her Mother Aya. I remember waking up from a dream I didn't know. I was looking around the globe in this open field, like, wow, this is really pretty. Wow, look at the colors. And I blinked. It's all it seemed like, but it was like I woke up. So it's like if you saw me from the outside in, it would look like I fell asleep. But I have to tell you that it seemed more real than this seems real. I looked over and there's this gal, she's sitting there, just radiating love. She's kind of leaning up against a tree. And I remember saying, so it's all story? All story, all the way down to the gaze of God. And then I blinked and I look around the grove and I'm looking at all these people and like, because I didn't have any preconceived. I'd been working for Tony Robbins. I didn't know anything about all the mythology around who this woman was inside this medicine. I had no idea, no clue. Nobody told me any of that. So it wasn't like somebody loaded that in me. You know what I mean? So then I'm looking around going, what the hell is that? And everybody's singing and dancing. Some people are purging. And then I blinked again. Or I woke up, depending on how you look at it, right? But I looked over at her, and now I'm bawling. So now this thing called purging comes online. Now I'm in my suffering. Like, if that's the case, why do we forget that we're telling ourselves this story? And why is it suffering? She started laughing at me, and then I woke up again. But it wasn't a laughter like, you're so stupid. It was a laughter as in, I get that question a lot. You know what I mean? It's like I expect that question. And it wasn't until I got farther down the road and I started she really started teaching me, that I realized the root word for human being in Arabic is to forget. So we forget that we remembered, we forget the promises that we made, and so we have the thought, hello, and then we have this crust, I call it subconscious, which is the boat that that the words are traveling in. And then like you think like you're traveling down the river of the story called Liz in the boat called Now. You're always in the boat called Now. You're never not in Now unless you project in your mind one way or the other. But even then, your body's in Now and you're just floating down that river. and then you have the water. Well, most people call that unconscious. I think that's a misnomer. I think that that's misleading. I think that it's not the unconscious, it's deep conscious. Layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of meaning, 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 meaning. And the mind's just constantly staying on top of that meaning so it can make more meaning, all the way down to your mom, your mom's mom, your mom's mom, dad's, like layers and layers and layers, all the way down to caveman. And we're on top of that with this little bitty, it's like we're looking through a keyhole, trying to explain what the universe is through that keyhole, thinking that we can see everything when we can't.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, and so shadow work is about going in and diving down in that water to go, okay, what's down there that's got you seeing the world in a way that doesn't line up with the way that you know you should, or you could, or you might, or you want
Right.
to, right?
Yeah. How is, I call it the lizard brain, right? That instinct to keep us safe. Like, what is Liz's brain or Steven's brain doing to keep us safe from the experiences that we experienced, or the experiences that we are unaware that our family experienced that were encoded in our DNA,
Well,
right?
I think at some level we're still experiencing it. Like, I have a client, actually, I'd call her more of a student than a client, but we were just working on the word. She feels like she's been robbed. She was robbed of her childhood. She was 8 years old. She started taking care of her brothers and sisters, and she became the mom. So this feeling of I'm being robbed came on top of her, and then again that pattern stuck. And so now it's in the experience of it. What you'll sense is it's I'm being robbed or I'm not being robbed. It's not I'm being robbed and I'm feeling fulfilled. It's either I've been robbed or I haven't. Haven't been robbed feels good-ish, but it's not tied to what could be, it's tied to what's not. And so at some level, I have to feel robbed even when I'm not. So it's not about those trying to avoid. At some level, it's like you're tethered. You can't get very far from the experience, because if I get very far from the experience, how will we get people down into these deep spaces, and it's like, okay, you see that right there? Now let go of that. Let go of that experience of being robbed. And all of a sudden you just see them kind of, I don't know how I would navigate the world without having that as a reference point. It's like all of the card house is all built on, so you have to pull that card, and then the mind wants to write itself. So I think what's happening is like where she sits, go with mine. When I got trapped in the basement, one of the other shadows I have is you're going to be a bum. My mom used to go around, don't be like so and so, he's going to be a bum, 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 bum. So I'm always 2 steps away. This happens, this happens. I'm going to be a bum. This happens, and not be just to be a bum financially, but boy, I say the wrong thing to Val, she'll leave me, I'll be a bum. But this happens, my kids won't love me, I'll be a bum. And it's always 2 steps away, right? It's always this far away. Well, here's what I'm seeing happen, and we'll go back to um, the successful guy in the room. Um, so you get somebody who they're focused on, for me, being a bum, 2 steps away. And what happens is, as we grow, because the way that we are defining the world is based upon you're this far away from being a bum, the more I made, the bigger the bum monster got. So I'm working for Tony Robbins. I'm making close to, it's like close to 400, $500,000. Like, I was making bank, like more money than I ever thought I could make in my lifetime. I'm a boy coming from Iowa cornfields kind of thing, traveling around the world, talking in front of countless people kind of thing, just living the life, living my mission at the highest level. And that bum monster it was one of the most miserable experiences at that time, because I was being chased by this bum monster. Maybe if I feed it more success, maybe fill it with bigger crowds, fill it with more accolades from Tony, fill it with, everything I would fill it with, it would just grow and grow. And then that bum monster it's sooner or later, you're going to be triggered out here. And what I think happens is the mind projects it out onto the world, but it's going to project it out this far so that I can see it. Right. And seeing is not believing. Believing is seeing. And so this was my experience of reality. I'm living this life that everybody was just dreaming of. Like, people would have died to be in my position. And I felt like at any given time, I was just going to be a bum. More so than and it was like this Armageddon moment after Armageddon moment after Armageddon moment where the world was going to change, and it was all due to you were going to be. And so I had to wrestle with that and make peace with that part of me and learn to integrate that voice into my consciousness, into my awareness, become integrated with it so that when it comes online, I know what this is. Calm down, little one. You're okay. Like, we got you. Like, you're good. And integrate that part of me. It's not that stuff happened back there. At some level, it's happening right now because time is an illusion. It's just one more construct that we're stuck in. We're not really in time. That's not what really is going on. You're not really seeing black shirt. That's not what you're really seeing. Your eyes convert the signal with different rods than what I've got. What you see and I see is not the same thing. The mind deletes, distorts, and generalizes. You convert it into dots and dashes, which goes into the brain. The brain then converts it into thought so that you can see. But what you're really seeing is your representation of the black, of a tree. You're not seeing it really at 100% what it really is because your mind goes, you don't need to pay attention to that, don't need to pay attention to that, don't need to pay. And it's hooked on survival. So it's constantly evolving into the least amount of information you need to survive because it's more efficient that way. Our job as humans is to notice that system, notice how that system is playing out, not only in the way that got us here, but noticing how the mind is constantly evolving and to notice how it's evolving so you can reverse those automatic programmings that have you focused in on these suffering states or having you focused in and not seeing the resources that are right in front of you, because then it would be, well, then you're not a bum. You can't do that because then you won't be a bum. You have to be 2 steps away from being a bum, and that'll be 3 steps. That's too far for you. Back up. Make sense?
Makes sense. Yeah, awareness is everything, I say. And it really, the key to healing the wound is having awareness of the wound and then how the wound is affecting us. And I like how you use psychedelic integration to sort of bypass the conscious mind, the mind, or I want to say the mind that's always thinking and trying to keep us safe, and scoot that out of the way to pinpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
what the wound is, what the story is.
Yeah, people think they're coming to, this is something that needs to be cleared up. People are coming to psychedelics because they want to be fixed, because again, our programming in society is take a pill. Just take a pill, shut down. You have 3 types you have drugs, you have medication, and then you have medicine. Drugs are something that I want to use to shut some part of me off. I want, as addiction, you go into addicts and you talk to them. I just wanted to kill off a part of myself. I wanted to shut a part of myself down. I wanted to get rid of that. And Gabor Mate's work supports this claim that it's coming from rooted in trauma, right? Those are drugs. Then you have medication. Medication is meant to mask over the pain. It's meant to manage the pain. Medicine is meant to fix the problem. It's meant to go in and show you how to heal. Well, it's medicine in that it's not fixing the wound. Most of the time, what I'm seeing happen is these teacher plants are going in and showing you how that change happens. And now you've got to go and integrate it into the outside world. So we do a lot of work. When it's shadow ceremony, there's no medicine at all. We don't do any psychedelics, and it's very conscious. And the reason why is because at the end of it, I'll go, how many of you here have used, and I typically right now it's about, it's getting smaller, about 60% of the room are people because those are the people that are really learning how to dig down underneath this, about 60% of the room. And I'll go, okay, how many of you felt it went to the same spot? And they'll all keep their hands up. I don't ever get anybody. We don't need psychedelics to get us there, but I needed somebody. That's why I choose to only work with plant medicine. I needed somebody to take me down someplace where in my mind, because my 23rd ceremony with Mother, we were getting ready for shadow ceremony. And again, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was getting ready. Again, I'm in my space. I have a certain process I do to get in the right, to get to my intention. And I'm lined up and I'm like, Mother, help me. Mother, help, because I'm like, clear the chamber, Mother. Like, prepare me for where I'm going. I don't want to step into ceremony and have my stuff in the way. I need to clear my stuff out of the way as soon as possible. And so this voice comes up. She comes up right here, right in my right ear, and whispers, when was the first time you can remember asking for your mother's help? Now, up until this time, I had no memory of when I was 3 years old, trapped in the basement. And now I do. I'm trapped in the basement. I'm like, oh shit, I remember this. get me out, get me out, get me out. I went out, I went out. I mean, the terror was so great that my mind was blacking out. Like it was like parts of my sight were like cutting out, like in turning into cubes. You know how when sometimes you squeeze your eyes, you see little squares? It was
Mhm.
doing all that. It was all just like unraveling right in front of me. Everything was just going apart. And this voice just kept going, keep moving forward, keep moving forward. And so I don't even know what that like when like, hey, I'm gonna keep, I don't know any other way to go. And I'm just trapped here, this feeling of being trapped, and all of a sudden I came out the other side. There's this release. And it's like learning how to. So now when I find myself trapped in that basement, I can go, do I know where that is? And I can go down in my mind and I know where that monkey is holding on to that fruit and go, let go there. And I let go there. And all of a sudden the whole hologram changes. Like all the risk comes down, all the stuff comes down because I know where I'm holding on and I know how to let go. The other piece is I get a lot of people that come to me that have heard about shadow works. Like I've tracked it all the way down. I know where the source is. Well, we do things different. Shadow Tribe does something. I got a group of people I'm training called Shadow Tribe. Go to theshadowtribe.com. It'll take you to a Facebook group. You have to answer the questions. If you don't answer the questions, I won't let you in. They're real easy just to make sure you are you answering the questions. But anyways, I got students that I'm teaching to do this now, and we believe you have to start with something practical. I come from Tony. What gets reported gets measured. What gets measured gets managed. And so we start off very clearly with, okay, when's the last time this came up? And we start off at a very practical level. This is where it's showing up, and then we dive down, 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 down to where we find where the source of it is. And in that, we then get to the second step. So we tied in the practical. This is what I'm experiencing, and we take it to where it starts. And then the next question is what did you need? Because we don't have shadow guides don't have any. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a guru. I'm not any of that. Again, I'm a dude who puts his pants on one leg. I've yet to meet anybody who walks on water. I've yet to meet anybody like any of that. Like I've been around. I've been looking, but I'm not any of that. I'm just a regular dude. A shadow guide by very nature don't have any answers. Our job is to help you find the answer. It's like, what did you need? And then we'll pull back and we go find what's called your sacred self. There's a part of you that was created out of the yearning for whatever wound. And it's like learning how to connect those two so that you can give yourself the healing that you're there to get because you've already provided that to the outside world. The problem is the algorithm's pointing out, not in.
Hmm.
And once you learn to give yourself what you're giving to everybody else, then in that way some healing can begin. But you got to know what that is. You got to know where it is. And once you do that, it's always interesting to me. People, I'll go, well, I don't know what, I don't know why. We'll get down there and they'll go, oh wow, that all makes so much more sense. Now I know why I was tripping myself up every time I came here. Now I know why this. Now I know that all of a sudden it all makes sense. Like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I would do the exact same thing. Like you see these people doing these horrendous things. It's like when you get down to the bottom of it and you really allow yourself to get to the bottom of it, those horrendous things make a lot of sense. You see business owners doing it all the way. Like I can't tell you the number of times I would dig into a business over 10,000. I've worked with over 10,000 businesses from around the world. And I'm telling you, 97% of them, when they get off the session with me, they'll tell me I learned more in the session than the entire time that this or that. Because when it boils down to it, the thing that's keeping you stuck is probably shadow at some level, either yours or somebody else's.
Mhm. Yeah. And how are we providing proof daily that this narrative is true?
Right.
Right? How are we creating this narrative in our life for ourselves to
Well, I call it the
perpetuate
plot, right?
the thought? Yes.
Yeah, this is the narrative or plot fits the hello, all that, right? But
Mhm.
we don't think in time, we think in moments, right? We store those moments in a story form. I think this is genius. If you really want to look at what, like really, if you're looking for things that point you to God, one of the things you can look at that's very clear is look at how enamored we are to story. You're
Mhm.
watching a movie, they call it narrative transportation, you get sucked into it, right? You just kind of wake up. It's like, man, for a second there, I was battling super villains, right? It's like you just kind of get sucked into the narrative transportation of it. And the reason why, if you go back, Joseph Campbell called it the monomyth. Same story, parents, all the way back to the very beginning of time. There's only been one story told, and that's the hero's journey. And so we can see that in story form. And then when we tell ourselves a story, we tell ourselves something and we create a story out of it. Then we lower that down into a belief or a meaning. It becomes a blueprint. Like, Liz, think of how certain you are that the sun is going to come up tomorrow.
Right.
Like, and you're nodding your head, but for a second, investigate that belief. How certain are you that the sun is going to come up tomorrow?
Right. Based on my everyday experience, that would be my story. The
How
sun is
certain
going.
are you that the sun came up today? And how certain are you that the sun has never come up? Like, it's never come up. You don't, the sun doesn't revolve around you. You revolve around, actually, you don't even revolve around it. It's more like a spiral. We're traveling through the universe and the world is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. But in the mind that is Liz, the sun comes up. We make those same beliefs. I'm going to get trapped in a basement. They kind of sit down there at that same level. And then that then drives your emotion. Well, if you make up a meaning, you tell yourself a story that you make a meaning that causes an emotion that is too intense for you to feel, then your risk manager comes online and says, I got you. And it loads that into the things that it's looking for, and it's looking for them everywhere. Well, and then you take those emotions, and if I'm not allowed, like, for example, hate. There's arguments been going on since the 1800s by people far smarter than me, whether hate is an emotion or not. I see it on the carpet all the time. All the time. We have to learn, because what were you taught about hate?
No, it's not good. You can't
And are
have
you a
those
lot?
feelings. You can't be angry at
That's
somebody.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. I can't hate. So then what happens is we get this emotion. I hate this, and I'm not allowed to experience it. And I've been trained at a core level that hate is bad. So then I shove that hate down. And now I've got this hate that's down there in my body that I can't experience, that my mind won't tell me I'm having, because we all want to be the hero of our story. We are all the heroes of our story. So then it takes that hate, and what does it do? Well, it's going to find a target group to project it on. And it's going to project that hate onto that target group. It's like people are homophobic or have some fear of being gay. Yes and no, at some of them maybe, but there's some kind of hate down there, obviously, that they've never given themselves permission to investigate and finally get out. And we need to go down into those uh, samskaras, as they call them in Hindu religion, and we need to take those energy, those charges, and allow the body to process them. Because otherwise what happens is the karma wheel comes around, and now I'm experiencing whatever that hate is, and I go, oh, you're the reason I'm hating right now. And if we can learn to train the mind to pull back, that's why most of my work is around training people. We want to get this out. It's like the more people we can, hang on, step back. What are you feeling in your body right now? Well, I'm feeling this. Oh, it's this thing right here. And it's got this color. It's got this shape. It's got okay. Where'd you pick that up at? Oh, I remember when. And you go down in and you do the work necessary to clean that out. All of a sudden now everything out here changes, because we're not dealing at the surface at the effect. We're going down in and trying to get as deep to the cause as possible. The total cause is God. That's all story all the way down to the gaze of God. Mother already showed me that. But get as close to that samskara as we can, and give them the ability to purge out that energy in a way that works for them. And now all of a sudden, interestingly enough, everything out here changes. And in ways that you could have never imagined. That's what's weird. Like, you'll see people show up on shadow ceremony that haven't been able to find a job, and on Sunday there's a job offer. I can't explain that. We had one lady that sat in through the program. Her and her mother had not been talking for several years. And we do this generational process. We take you through the cave into the shadow, but we're taking you past the shadow to what I call your axis mundi, your sacred well, the well inside of you that every human has. We have to go through the shadow to get there. There's no other way to get there, right? Not that I'm aware of anyways, and I'm sure there probably is. All roads lead to Rome, but that's the way I've been taught. And so we do this process, and we do this generational shadow process right before it. And she said right after that process, she had multiple text messages and phone calls from her mom. This is a lady who'd been, and again, did I do that? No, I didn't do anything. I didn't even create this. This was all gifted. Like, this all came from someplace else. So it's like, what caused that? I don't know. I just find it very odd the way that everything shifts when you do work at that deep of a level.
Yeah, we're all energetically connected, right? It's like when you go to cut a cord with somebody, and then as soon as you cut that cord, they're texting you, I miss you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well, she was letting go. She wasn't cutting the cord. What she was letting go of is is the expectation that it's about, because when we do work, I think time is, I don't think time is real. I think we're stuck in the fourth dimension. We're stuck in this time space experience.
Mhm.
But there's like they say there's like 9, 13. I'm not the guy. I'm not the one, right? But if we're trapped in this, if we really step back and look at it, if I choose to finally stop and go, that's not coming no farther than here, I'm going to heal this. I'm going to address this. I'm going to integrate the lessons from it and gain my superpower because there's a superpower that every shadow brings along. It always brings a gift. Ram Dass said, shadow is the greatest teacher for enlightenment. I don't go looking for suffering, but when it shows up in the bottom, I will find grace if I'm willing to do my work. So it's like the buck stops here. Now, do we just do that healing for ourselves? No, because now I'm healing everybody behind me. Everybody that came down lane from me is not now they're going to experience the gift that came out of that. So they're going to get everything that came of that. And part of me thinks that at some level, you're now healing your generations above you that came behind you, because now you're dealing with the thing that they couldn't deal with. You're showing them that it can be done. So we're not just doing the work for us. We're doing the work for everybody. And not everybody you're seeing, but everybody, because we are
I
all
agree.
connected. And how can we
We
not
are
be?
all connected.
Right? Like I'm a walking tree. If you look at a tree, is a tree ever doubt, like an oak will never be a pine, and it'll never be a football, and it'll never be a dog. It's always going to be a tree. There's never anything out here that isn't exactly what it is. It never changes. Like, you know what I mean? Humans. I am Steven. You make a really crappy Steven. I make a great Steven. I make a crappy Liz. You know what I mean? It's like I'm Steven, and I'm the universe Stevening right now. That's what I am. And I'm meant to be right here in this moment in time so I can have a conversation with you in this way, in this time. And it took all of the trauma that I went through. And I went through a considerable amount of pain to get here. Like I didn't just like wake up like this. I had to go through, and I still go through considerable amounts of bumping my head. So I
Mhm.
surround myself around a tribe that will help me do my work, so that I don't have to do it out here. I can do it in here so it doesn't come out here.
Right. And the process that you're describing, Stephen, sounds very shamanic, like taking a shamanic journey as per se to find a spirit animal or to find healing or something. Like you're going down into the depths of your subconscious, so to speak, to like kind of walk yourself through past your pain, past your wound to find the gold, right? To find where you've hooked in and be able to release that. I
Yep.
love that concept. Yeah.
Yep. I remember this is the same 23rd ceremony. I remember I came out of it. I was like, wow, that was powerful. Well, if that was the work, I should be able to see God. I should be able to see, because for me, it's an entheogen. It's always connecting to source. It's always connecting to my higher self, which I know sounds woo woo. I didn't come from the woo. I just ended up here kind of thing. And so I remember looking around going, and this voice in my head, do you see God over there? No. Do you see God over there? No. How about over there? No. Is there any place you haven't looked? No. Do you see God anywhere? I don't. What's the one place you haven't looked? And I paused for a minute. Hmm. And I can't explain this in a way that makes sense because I'm trying to explain what the color 7 smells like. But I
Mhm.
turned inside my mind. It's, oh, I know. And some part of me turned inside my mind. It's like I fell back and down. That's the only way I can explain it. I fell back and down, and all of a sudden I connected to something. And then it said, now open your eyes. Now look. And when I opened up my eyes again, there was God everywhere. It's like we are in the womb. Like if we were born, everything is fractal. If everything's a representation of something else, if we look at everything as cycles, everything out here is cycles, when that would mean everything. And so that would mean if we were born into this, it would mean that we're being born into something else. It can't not be that. Like it just can't. Not if you look at the way everything is patterns. So if we were born and it's just this version of being born is different than that version of being born. And so it's like you start to get to this spot where we are all connected. And now what is the universe? What am I here to do? Like, what's this about? Like so many people, Liz, that I'm finding in our society, they've lost the plot. They
Mhm.
don't know what their purpose is. They don't know what their meaning is. They've forgotten who they truly are. And this isn't not about shooting lightning bolts out of your butt. It's not about some super conscious, some supernatural powers that we're all trying to possess. It's not about any of that. It's about none of it and all of it. It's changes nothing and it changes everything. It's a perspective to know that life doesn't come at you, it doesn't come to you, it doesn't come from you. Life comes through you, and it's always coming through me. If I give myself permission to sit back in that well and see that, I can see what's coming out, and now I can reach into the depths of it and pull genius out. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like we all have access to genius. It's one of the things we talk about. We teach in it's we all have genius. Genius is not Albert Einstein. It is not Elon Musk. It's not these people that we look at and they create these great things. Although that is genius. Genius in its root means an authentic representation of the source. If you go back in and track the word genius, it's an authentic representation of the source through you. Your genius. This is my authentic. So it's like I am stepping into genius. The archetype is the genius. The feeling that comes along is wonder. When I go into wonder, I start to reach down. I wonder what would happen if. I wonder if I did this. I wonder if it unlocks this genius in us that comes through. And when we do that, and we truly step into our genius, and I'm able to truly step into my authenticity, something happens. The world conspires in my favor when that
Mm-hmm.
happens. It's just me being, oh, my legs are shaking right now. That's like that was odd.
Maybe you got some
Odd.
Kundalini energy coming up right there,
Maybe.
shooting through your body.
I don't know
That's
anything
awesome.
about that's the thing. I don't know anything about that. I came from the world where I spent 10 years working for Tony Robbins and his business mat, like built that
Mhm.
thing up. We went from 100 people. We took them to, I think we had over 1,000. We were going to 2,500 people when I finally had to step off to do my own thing. And I think he's up to 5,000 now, but it's a whole nother thing. So I was working with businesses and everything had to be tracked, measured, and managed. Everything had to be practical. And I just followed the practicality of everything all the way down to the literal very gaze of God. And it's like it's all connected. So that when I run into people that talk about Kundalini energy, I go, okay, I know that there's some representation of that in my body, but I haven't identified yet what that is. And because I'm following this other shadow track, but we're
Mhm.
all converging. It's amazing the amount of people, healers from different, I didn't know, but there's a sect in Buddhism that's been doing a version. There's this process, if you look up feeding your demon on there's an awesome book, it's a real little book, but it's one process. It's a shadow process is what it is, where they take you through actually feeding your demon. They've been practicing this, some of them for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Like this has been used. Like this is not new. Like I'm not what I'm finding, it's like we're bumping around in the dark and we're kind of noticing things, but there were people that knew this stuff intimately long before our society came on. We've lost the plot. It's time to refine the plot, align with my purpose. And when I can find my purpose, that's the seven archetype is the healer, or excuse me, is the hero, and the feeling is holy. And not holy is in Holy, holy is in Whollly. There's holy, there's my profound and my profane. My shadow is right here, my brilliance is right here. And the two of them, I'm owning both of me at the same time. And in between the two sits me. And oh, there's my meaning right there. There's my purpose. And everybody's is different.
Mhm.
Everybody else, like if you think, Liz, the story that you make up about the reality that you're living out of, the only place that that story exists is in your head. The universe that you're living out of, you're like we're all here with you co-creating it, but that's your universe. My
Mhm.
universe is my universe. The only place that that story exists is in my head. It's like we've lost that plot. We don't understand what's really going on. And because that, it's like everybody feels like it's like people tell me I feel like I'm being dragged. I'm being dragged around chasing. It's like you're behind a ski boat and you can see yourself hitting the rocks. And like the more you focus on the rocks, the closer you get to the rocks. And what you've forgotten is not only you're the skier, but you're also the person driving the boat. You're doing both. And it's like when we realign and we figure out what's going on, all of a sudden meaning and purpose comes online again. And you see these people just take off, like boom, gone, boom, gone. Like all of a sudden stuff that they've been tethered to for, hundreds of thousands of years, maybe, right?
Mhm.
And now all of a sudden I'm going to go do this or I'm going to do that. And all of a sudden you just see them. It's glorious to watch. Like, it's just amazing that I'm gifted with the people that around me that I am, to watch them just, take away the support they give me, take away the ability to do my work, just watching them open up and like rub their eyes like, oh wow, that was a bad dream. Like, I don't want to do that again. Like, seeing people wake up for me is, it's the game. It's the game.
That's beautiful. What a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want to kind of go back to that space where you were talking about falling into yourself and realizing it is a co-creation and it's flowing through you, and that we are playing a role in each other's play, right? Like, this is a big play. We've all got a role to play. It's a co-creation. And how are we doing that? And we do have control over that play,
Mm-hmm.
that's going on. I like that
Yeah.
perspective. Yeah.
Well, and like you see it with couples. As you do couple shadow work, it's a whole nother thing. If
Mm-hmm.
my wife and I have entered into a level of conversation that we could have never gotten, because I was so stuck in my universe. Again, me and my reality are inseparable. Nobody can separate me from my reality but me. And only I can own where I'm in shadow. You can't, this is what's going on, because I won't be able to find where that monkey is held onto I've got to find where that monkey's got the fruit, right? If I don't do that, then I'll forever. You could tell me where it is, but in one of the rules in shadow work is, if you miss, much like diving, if you miss by an inch, you miss by a mile. It's like when you're looking for gold in the ocean, you could be 2 inches over and you're not going to find anything, right? If you miss by an inch, you miss by a mile. So I've got to trail that down to find it. And I've got to go through the experience. So I say it's a subjective experience of diving. You've got to subjectively go down. You can't just say, I know what it is because I had this. No, that's not what you need to do. We got to go in and through the pain, or through the emotion, whatever the emotion is, and down in that way, so that you can see, this is how I'm grabbing onto it, because it could be different. And so, because you're in, your story is based on think about this, 3.5 billion years of evolution of consciousness, from the beginning of the amoeba to where we are. It's been bubbling up the story, and it's bubbled up through lifetime after lifetime after lifetime to where you are right now. And it's the only place that story exists is in your head. And the only place that my story exists is in my head. But somehow you and I are able to co-create.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we're pointing at God. Like, how in the heck does that happen? And these are the kinds of questions, as a shadow guide, 23 years experience, I went from chasing my pain to going, oh, wait a minute, like, what about over, if this is going, because everything is patterns, if the
Mm-hmm.
suffering looks this way and I look over, oh, it's the same over here. Like, it's the same thing. Like, it's all a structure that, if I allow myself to step away of the duality of it and see it for what it is, I go, oh, I understand. And again, I'm not a guru. That's not what I am. I fail at this most times, but there are moments where I look back and I'm just amazed at the ability for us to co-create together. And I was in a process with a gentleman, and his dad was an emotional, what did he call him? He was emotionally manipulative. Well, it's hard to work with somebody when they were working with somebody that was manipulative, because I'm trying to, in all intents and purposes, influence your emotions, trying to
Mm-hmm.
trigger you. Like, that's what I'm trying to do. I want to get you into that wound. Let's go into it. Let's go down into it. And so 3 hours I'm with this guy, and he's running. I've got 7 different strands going on. I'm like, got them all, trying to look for the pattern in all of them. And all of a sudden, this thing comes over me. I start to feel this. Because everything we do is structured. We've got people that kind of, elder came in and said, she said, Stephen, I need you. Are you okay? Are you here right now? I'm like, I blinked. I'm like, nope, nope. I step back. I took a step back. I start coughing, and then they hand me a bucket. I start purging. They set me down. Much you talk about the shaman. I've got a bunch of people on. They start blowing mapacho, and I'm just sitting there going, oh, I cannot believe. And then I hear over in the corner of the room, he goes, see, just like with my dad, I broke him because I can't trust. Oh, I know exactly what this is. Stood back up. But he had to see me go through that so that he could then attach to what was going on. Now, why did I start coughing like that? Why did I all of a sudden physically have this urge to purge, so to speak? Because I
Mm-hmm.
remember thinking, what am I doing right now? And this voice in my head said, just go with it, man. Just go with it. You got this. So like, what was that was underneath the water that I was sim to be connected with, that somehow connected me into his dream in such a way that I was able to play that part for him? I don't know what that is. Like, I don't know what that is. Like I said, I don't have any answers here, but something somewhere wanted him to get what he got, and he got exactly what he needed.
Energetically speaking, when you're doing energy work, when you start coughing like that, I term it, my teacher called it horking. And what we're doing is we're horking up that energetic residue that's been stuck in our body that's attached to those wounds, because it all gets stuck in our body, and we have to hork that out. We have to, and then if purging follows, great. It's only benefiting the body because you're releasing that stuck energy that's been stuck there for years, and that releases to let the energy flow through the body. And then with that flow of energy comes that awareness of what that initial wound was, or
We
the
call those
story
data
behind that
downloads.
wound, or
Yep.
yeah, to where all of a sudden you're seeing, him going, I can't trust you, because that has moved through, that energy has brought that up for you to be able to see.
Well, again,
over there, that's
the Hindus call them samskaras.
yeah.
Like, here we are all talking about the same thing, different languages, but we're all running into the same thing. Same thing? No, yeah, we call it this other thing over here. And it goes, and what that's allowed me to do is it reminds me of the monks, blind monks and the elephant. And we're all feeling around on the same thing, but we're finally getting to the point now. It's like we're converging on the space where we're all finally figuring out, oh, we're all talking about the same thing here.
Yes, hallelujah.
It's to watch what's going on. And I wonder if every generation says this, but it really does seem like we're crossing the threshold. And that's what Mother told me. I'm a keeper of the threshold. Like, that's what I do. Here we go. We're going through this change, right? And it could be anything, but it feels like a threshold.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait. If we just look at, they say that every society understands the mind and body based upon the emerging technology of the times. So you had, back in the old days when hydraulics came online, leaching was a big thing. It was such a big thing that France had imported like 80 tons or 8 tons. There's some unbelievable number. It was getting hard to find leeches. That's how bad it was. Because anything that went wrong is, oh, you need to leach. Oh, you need to leach. Oh, you need to leach. And then we'll just step into the computer age. Well, your mind is like software. It's not software, for those of you that are correcting me right now. It's like software, right? Your computer boots up, the software comes online. Like, I worked in the tech field. So DOS, then you have Windows 95. Those of you that are millennials or are younger, just pray that you never have to see DOS. Like, be thankful, kind of thing, right? That there's the DOS, which was the operating system, and then the Windows 95 would sit on top of it, right? Well, you're not really seeing a recycle bin. That's not really what you're seeing. Like, you take the icon and you go over and you drag it. And it's not like you grab that application and threw it in the trash. That's not really. It's a bunch of zeros and ones, right? We're all starting to really understand, and now you go into where we're coming now. We went from the industrial age and the computer age, went into the information age, and now we're shifting into something different. David Hume calls it the shift age, because the velocity of change is sped up so great that what happened in 100 years, like the amount of happenings that would happen in 100 years is now happening every 10 years. And now the amount of happenings that ever happened every 10 years is now happening every year. Everything's speeding up, right? We're hitting that tipping point. Well, you look at the emerging technology of the times. Well, we've got virtual reality coming online. We got artificial augmented reality coming online. So now we could start to see your shadow is much like that overlay. Now we can start to see it. It's like that overlay of, you got a pair of glasses on you didn't know you had, that says you're going to be a bum. And so it just would notice all these places. You've forgotten that you've got these glasses on telling you what's going on. And you see the current renaissance in psychedelics. I got to tell you, Liz, I'm amazed. I cannot wait to see what my kids' kids. Remember when you were a kid and you would have the blinking 12 on the VCR, and you just knew how to set that VCR? It's like easy,
Right.
But your mom and dad looked at it like it probably blinked until you came and set it, right? This is going to be the same way for our grandkids, right? They're going to be knowing things and doing things with the technology that we're just now emerging. And like it's going to be miraculous. I believe that kids will have found a way to make sense of our reality that will look like magic to us. That's how
Yeah, I'm
fast we're
excited
moving.
to see what it turns into. There's a lot of magic going on right now with the shift that's happening, and I'm super excited to see what's coming down
Oh
the
yeah.
pike and we're creating it. We've gone from a space where we know what's coming to no, we're creating it as we go. There is no final this or final that. It's just like a constant creation, and we are creating it now. We are in the flow. We
Yep.
are the creators.
Well, it's so many. This ties back to what we were talking about shadow work. Shadow
Mm-hmm.
work is never done. It's either doing or being done to you. It's never done. Shadow work is always in the now.
Yeah.
People think they're going to come take a pill and take a medicine. Some people think they're going to come do shadow work. Shadow work is a practice. It's like meditating. It's a specific form of practice by touching the deeper. Every now and again, you're going to get a crack. You feel that crack? What is that? I don't know what that is, but there it is. Like it's never done. It's a doing or not doing. It's never done. Our reality is just a constant arriving. It's never arrived. It's evolving. It's never evolved. Our mind is constantly evolving. Our species is constantly evolving. Why can't we do the same thing with our life? Is
Yes.
allow ourselves to go like our society needs to make some changes. The whole cancel culture needs to have a look at. I mean, stop canceling stuff because people are finally owning their behavior. Like, you know what I mean? Give people the ability to evolve. We've got this stagnant look at how we live it's been embedded in us because the ego doesn't want to move. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want to move, wants to stay. Like, don't go that way, don't go that way, stay right here. But you can't stay right here. So then we're like growth is uncomfortable, rarely convenient. We never want to grow, so we only grow through pain. Like it leads us to then what happens? Well, then we have to manage. Most people don't design the ideal; they just manage circumstances. So now they're trying to manage their circumstance, and oh, if I could just get this flashlight, I'd be good enough. If I get this phone, maybe I'd good enough. If I get this new job, I get this wife, I get this trophy husband, trophy wife, trophy whatever. I'll finally be able to close down that voice in me that says I'm not good enough. And then we have companies that come online and then start to target those pain points. And if I can hit them and make them feel that pain point, then they will go and manage that pain and they'll buy things. They'll become consumers. We've been programmed to be consumers when in reality we're creators.
Mm-hmm.
We create our reality through our meaning that we're living out of, and we don't know how that works. And we need to be trained as a species. We need to evolve the way we understand the mind and the way that we understand the way that we connect with our reality, because otherwise we're going to continue to be trapped in this cycle, and we're the prisoner and we're the warden.
Yeah. And I agree also with what you said just a second ago. We need to dissolve the divisiveness and come together as one to walk each other, to heal each other,
Yes.
to teach each other like
Yes.
how we get to these places where we can evolve. And it's
Yep.
holding each other's hands and
It's
taking
more than that.
whatever we offer the planet, right? And holding our neighbor's hand and going, hey, you can try this to evolve. And it's evolving together, not, okay, that's yours and that's how you evolve, and that's yours and that's how you evolve, and hey, you over there, that's how you evolve. It's coming together and helping each other evolve with the gifts that we all have, and using our gifts to help each other to walk each other home.
Yeah. Again, there's this big. I saw it during COVID. You know, the Republicans are trying to eat me. The Democrats are trying to eat me. There's this, and again, we don't know that we're feeling this way. We don't know that we're experiencing life this way. It's not about it is everything you said, and it's even, I think, at the root of it, it's being willing for me to go, okay, I'm hating on this person. Why? What's underneath? I don't like to say why because that's a shaming question, but what's underneath my need to have this evil in my life?
Mm-hmm.
What is the feeling that this gives me? What is that charge about? What's behind that charge? So that I can finally get down to seeing, oh, I'm monstering you because there's part of me that's that monster, and I can't own that part of me. It doesn't I don't think change will ever happen by me coming to you and going, Liz, we're going to work together and you need to fix yourself.
Mm-mm.
Anytime Liz needs fixed from my end, that's my work. If I think you need fixed, then that's my work. Why do I
Yeah,
have
that's
this
the mirror.
charge?
Yeah.
Yep. It's always a mirror. Like Alan Watts said, we're standing in front of this mirror that has infinite length, infinite width, and we're just standing in front of it. And everything we see is a representation of us. Hermetic principles, so within, so without, so above, so below. You start to do the shadow work and you get underneath the water and you go, wow, like this is all a projection, a reflection, or whatever. Everything out here is a projection of in here. If we look at our current society and the way that we currently manage our government and all that, they say that people get the government that they deserve. What we're getting is a fractal representation of the internal dynamics of the human condition.
Yeah.
Yes, none of them can make a decision. No. None of them can take a blame. No. None of them can. No. Not none of them. Nope. Not none of them. They'll do it a little different way, but they're all doing the same thing. Two wings on the same bird kind of thing. But that bird doesn't exist out there. When I change who I am in here, and then you see me, and I come from an authentic space, then all of a sudden that gives you permission to come from your authenticity. It
Yeah.
also challenges you because I'm calling myself on my shit. Leaders tell on themselves. And now you're calling yourself on your shit. And now all of a sudden everybody around us sees and then they wake up. And then the next thing you know, it spreads like wildfire. And then all of a sudden the company, the government, the leadership that we need will emerge through that. And I don't
I
know
love
what that
that.
looks like, but I don't know any other way that it can happen. We tried everything else.
Yeah, we're
Everybody
the
stop.
microcosm. Yeah, we're
All
the
right.
microcosm of the macrocosm, and the macrocosm, we're the microcosm.
Yep.
And to see the change that we want to see in the macrocosm, we need to change it in the microcosm, which is us,
Okay. Because
within
we won't
us.
even be able to see it. You won't.
No.
If the change happens, as I was working with the homeless in Colorado Springs, I was doing their Jobs to Life program, and I remember this gal was just a mess. I remember telling you, I just want you to know that you're loved here. Like somebody loves you. Like you're not loved. Somebody. Oh, you sure you would love me, wouldn't you? Because you need somebody to be homeless and at the bottom for you to love them. You need me here. Like, no, I don't need you here. I don't know you from other than your interaction with me. I just want you to know that somebody cares about you. Somebody loves you. Yeah, whatever. Like she could not hear because the filter, the glasses are always on. And if you don't know they're on and you don't know, go down to get some understanding of what's written on those glasses, you have no choice but to see the world through those glasses. There's no other way to get there but through going in and through. There's no other way to get there. So like the change could happen and you're still going to see it as you'll see it as an attack. Like most of the time, the change happens exactly how you want it, and you go, that's just proof right there that what I said was true. You got exactly what you wanted. Yeah, but it didn't happen the way I wanted in the right time I wanted, or it didn't happen this and that. Like you're going to find some way to pick it apart so that because Tony used to say identity is the most powerful force in the human dynamic. How we identify with ourselves, we will do anything to stay consistent and persistent with the rules and labels that we use to identify ourselves. It's true. And if it looks too good to be true, then it probably is in your mind. And you're going to find a way to make it so, because seeing isn't believing, believing is seeing.
Exactly. Stephen, this has been an amazing conversation. I really
Yes.
appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Fantastic. We could probably go on for another hour.
I'd love that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. I think we definitely hit some great spaces. You'll have to come back and be on the show again sometime soon.
I would love
Continue the
that.
conversation.
Yep. Thank you for that. I
Awesome.
love
Is
that.
there a jewel of wisdom that you can leave us with today to wrap us up, Stephen?
Jewel of wisdom. I wish I had. That's that right there, Liz. I wish I had a jewel of wisdom that I could say I have this, right? But I don't really have anything. It's all. Let's think of it this way. When you see a kitten, I got twin girls and they wanted cats for their birthday. Again, I'm a work in process, Liz. You'd think I'd have known by now not to do the dumb mistake of buying a pet for somebody's birthday, but yet I still do it. So now I have these kittens that are running around the house. And when you see a kitten, what are they doing? They're attacking each other. They're sneaking up on each other. They're hunting. They're doing what cats do. They're built to do what cats do. Hear me, for she or he who has the words to hear what I'm here, the words I'm about to say. If that's what cats are doing and they're showing us what's in their DNA, let's turn over to little people. What do parents tell little people to do? Go play. And go back everybody that's listening, go back to the subjective experience of being a child and remember what you did. You would go into this space, this altered space, and you would go, I'm going to be the doctor, you're going to be the caretaker, you're going to be the good guy, you're going to be the bad guy, I'm going to be the cop, I'm going to be the whatever. Everybody picked the role that they were going to play, and then we went out and played in that reality, didn't we? And in our mind and in that space, that reality was like there was something about it that we disconnected the material world and connected this contemplation part of our brain that would just go into this knowing that this is the way life was. What were we doing? We were practicing being grown adults. That's what we do here. The difference is you're doing it at a genius level. You're not doing it at the basic level that the kids do it at. You're doing it at a mastery level and layers and layers and layers of it. And you've got multiple stories you're telling yourself. You've learned to be completely blind to the truth, to line up with the story that you're telling yourself. We have to learn that we're just here playing a game. And it's all a game. And at the end of the day, mom and dad are going to go, it's time to go home.
I love that. What a great analogy that was. See, you did have a jewel. That was an awesome way
But
to
again, it wasn't mine. That was somebody
this.
else's. Like it's somewhere else. It came through me. I don't know where it came from, but you can't not
That's
see
great.
it.
And it's so true. You know, if you look at it and you really contemplate on that, that is so true. How can people get a hold of you and work with you, Stephen?
You can find me on my website. You'll find me at Mastering Change. So MASTERING Change. I believe that's what we're doing here. We're all mastering change. So masteringchange.com. We have an app. So you want to learn how to do shadow work. I have an app. If you go to the App Store and you download the 30-day mental cleanse, that will take you to the, and I've got a couple different programs that are loaded in there. I've got an intro to shadow work, which you can pick up right there. And then I've also got an online group. If you go to theshadowtribe.com, it'll take you to a Facebook group. And again, you have to answer the questions. That'll put you in the group. We have a weekly Zoom session where my students will come and they will it's like, if come here, you don't have to pay anything for it. It's free. You come here, you have to check in while you're there. If you don't want to check in, well, then you can't be part of this group. We want to make sure everybody's human and everybody knows that everybody else in the room is human. And then we will break in and do some shadow work, and you'll be surprised where we get there. Or if you want to take a deep dive, shadowceremony.com will take you right to the information about our extremely intensive, not for everybody. You got to be willing to take a look at the deepest, darkest parts of yourself kind of thing. If you go to shadowceremony.com, that'll take you back to Mastering Change, but it'll take you to that page. And then you should be able to find me. You can find me on Facebook, find me on Instagram, find me on Twitter now. I'm not very good at that. I'm on LinkedIn quite regularly. So I guess throw a rock and you'll probably hit me.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephen. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. What a fun conversation.
Thank you very much, Liz. I appreciate it.
Thanks. And everybody go find Stephen. I can already tell if you sign up for his Facebook page or do one of his programs, you're going to go deep and you're going to wake up and it'll be life-changing. So go search him out, go like him, follow him, listen to him. Thank you, Stephen. It was a pleasure to have you. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, I'm Liz Peterson and this is Raise the Vibe. You can find me on Facebook, YouTube at Raise the Vibe with Liz. Oh, and Instagram, and my website is lizshealingtouch.com. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And remember to get out there and raise the vibe. Bye everyone.